Hello everyone, welcome to Flutter OnAir Summer Conference. It's super cool to see all of you here. Actually, my name is Maki and I'm the main organizer of this event. I hope everything's working fine. Everything's fine today. And I guess we can start. So if you have any questions during the live stream, feel free to ask, for example, in the chat on YouTube, or we use Slido, so join us with hashtag Flutter OnAir. What is the plan for today? We have 6 amazing speakers like Tomáš, Dominik, Simon, Lara, Filip, or Jose. All talks will be in English. And the last talk, there is a Q&A session, or that's a discussion session with Filip and Jose from Google. We will chat about the Flutter Boring Show, Flutter Gallery, lifestyle at Google, etc. So definitely prepare questions. And actually, we have a small giveaway for you. But first, who is behind this event? Behind this event, it's just me. So hi, I'm Maki. I work as a Flutter developer. I'm fond of programming. I like Python, JavaScript, and of course, Dart and Flutter. In my spare time, I love organizing events like this one, for example, online conferences. But actually, it's my first one, so I hope it's working perfectly. And what about the giveaway? We have for you 5 vouchers on Google Merchandise Store, where you can, I don't know, for example, choose an amazing t-shirt. And there's one special prize for one attendee, and it's coffee with Googler. How does it work? Coffee with Googler is one-to-one online 20-minute session from a Googler from the Flutter team. And you wonder how to take part in. You just need to watch the live stream, because every speaker has a special keyword related to Flutter. And the keyword will be said a few times during the specific talk. And if you have these 4 keywords, you just need to have the 4 keywords, because we have 6 speakers. So you can win the coffee with Google. And so thanks Google for providing us the amazing prizes. And actually in the registration, we ask we ask about your favorite Flutter apps. So the favorite Flutter apps are Flutter Gallery, Reflectly, Alibaba, or Flock. If someone wants to see these super cool charts, it's this. And what about the packages? The most favorite one is definitely Provider or Flutter Block, but the Firebase and HTTP are very, very cool as well. Okay, you can see here some charts as well. And I guess it's time to welcome our first speaker, who is Tomáš. Tomáš, he is an amazing developer and speaker. He is also a Google developer expert for Dart. And actually, looking backward, I've seen a few of his talks about Flutter. And it's the reason why I started with Flutter, because I was like, I guess I should learn it. So, hello, Tomáš.
Hello, good for you, good for you. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm flattered.
The stage is yours.
Thank you. So, my name is Tomáš, I'm Flutter developer, and I'm going to talk on how to become a Flutter developer. So I must say that this talk is probably more targeted to beginners, but maybe it will help you to somehow organize your thoughts or your focus on Flutter. So you probably know that Flutter is this amazing framework for building mobile applications, Android, iOS, or even for web and desktop. And you probably even tried to install SDK, and maybe you tried the Hello World example. And maybe now you are a little bit overwhelmed where to begin or how to continue, because to be honest, Flutter is growing like crazy and there is a lot of things you need to ingest. So I would like to give you 3 main topics where you should focus your attention. It's Dart as a language. It's how to build your user interface, and also the 3rd pillar of Flutter development, in my opinion, is state management. So let's dive into it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Dart because, first of all, I think that Dart is quite easy to learn. If you know Java or JavaScript, this should feel very similar, and I would say it's quite intuitive. Dart has a lot of modern features and also quite extensive language guides and online resources, so you can learn Dart from official website. But nonetheless, Dart is definitely one of the pillars you need to study if you want to become Flutter developer. So let's talk about building your user interface. It's quite easy, isn't it? It's just a tree of Dart objects. Actually, we don't even need to write the new keyword here, so we can write it like this. And this is a very simple piece of UI. It's just text centered on the screen. Of course, you can build something more complicated, like this column of 3 widgets, again, centered on the screen. But there is a catch. You cannot modify your UI. Once you build it, you just cannot change it. You can store a column in a variable, but you cannot access it later. You cannot change it. You cannot add child or remove child. It just cannot be done. It doesn't make any sense in Flutter. But obviously, you need to change the UI from time to time, right? So what can you do? It's important that you understand how Flutter works behind the scenes. Whenever Flutter framework decides that the UI must be changed or rendered, it will call your build methods, and depending on the state of your application, you will build a tree of widgets like this, for example. If you want to be all fancy about it, you can say that user interface in Flutter is function of state, which sounds quite educated. And every time Flutter decides that state has changed, it will call your build method, and it can be done 60 frames per second. Actually, all, I don't know, animations or interactivity in Flutter is done like that. The tree of widgets is immutable, so you need to build it again from scratch every time something changes. Don't think too much about it. Don't overthink it. Flutter will take good care of this problem. Flutter will optimize the rendering process so that only the work necessary is actually done. So unless you know perfectly well what you are doing, don't try to optimize it if it's not causing you any problems. Just believe Flutter in this. So I'm talking about 3 of widgets. So what is a widget in Flutter? Well, everything is a widget. It's quite easy. The center layout is a widget. Column of widgets is a widget. Text is a widget. Button is a widget. You can think about it as it's like a Lego brick, and I know it's a little bit cliche in IT, but in this case, I would say that it is actually true, because you can combine Flutter widgets almost any way you want, just like Lego bricks. Every widget is equal with other widgets, so you can put the raised button into center, or text into center, or center into column, and so on, and it will work. Let me give you through a few examples what widgets we have, and some of them might be maybe even surprising for beginners. So definitely all layouts are widgets, of course. Center, or row of widgets, or column of widgets. Stack, which allows you to put widgets on top of each other. Everything here is a widget. Also, scaffold is a widget. It's this very useful tool which allows you to build material design screen with nice up bar, main content, bottom bar, floating action button, very useful. And another is, for example, custom paint widget, which will allow you to draw anything if you need a nice piglet in your application. So there isn't any piglet widget in Flutter, but you can easily create it on your own. You can draw directly on canvas if you need to. This one is my favorite. Your application is a widget, and also the 3D transformation is a widget. So you can take your application and nest it under a transform widget, and then everything works as expected. Everything works just fine, but all application is slightly tilted. It's not useful at all. I don't think that anyone have a reasonable use case for this, but it shows you how insanely composable Flutter widgets are. You can combine anything with anything, and Flutter will somehow manage to work no matter what you are trying to do. Another great example of everything is a widget approach is this situation. I have this text in the center of the screen, and for some reason I need to handle a tab event on the text widget. But text doesn't have any on tab handler or callback or I don't know what. So what can I do? Well, there is a widget for that. There is gesture detector. It doesn't paint, it's not visible, but you can use it to wrap anything you want. And gesture detector has on tap and on drag and on scale. And using gesture detector, you can add interactivity to, again, almost anything. This is something new in Flutter, I would say. I haven't seen it anywhere else. Whenever you have some kind of this problem, there probably is a widget for that. Theme of your material design application is a widget. Text direction on the screen, is it left to right or right to left? That there is a widget for that. So if you run, when you run into trouble, try to find a widget. There's probably one in core library. So you know that you need to study that. You know how to build your user interface using widgets. And now we have to talk about state management. It's a little bit advanced topic, but I think it's quite important to catch it from the very beginning, because I've run into some troubles in my first applications because I didn't know anything about state management. I come from backend development and Angular development on front end. So maybe if you are coming from React, you have some ideas how to manage state in these situations, but I did not, and it cost me a few extra hours. So I would say that state management is definitely one of 3 important pillars of Flutter development, at least at the beginning. So we spend a lot of time talking about the widgets. Rightfully so, widgets are awesome and important, and we need to talk a little bit about the state. When you are developing your Flutter application, you are building your own widgets, your own components, your own Lego bricks. In general, you have these 2 options: stateless widget and stateful widget. Stateless widget is quite straightforward. Everything is set in constructor. Everything is final. Stateless widget is completely immutable. It just builds and it's done. Stateful widget is more complicated because it's made of 2 parts. It's a widget, very simple widget, and it's state. In this case, for example, we have this centered text in the state of our stateful widget. What is important? You can change the state in this situation. You cannot change the widget, but you can change the state. You can add this method, for example, set text, which changes centered text to some new text. Everything you do, you have to do it in setState method, because that will notify Flutter that the state has changed somehow, and that you need to rebuild your user interface. So Flutter will call your build function. It will destroy all unused widgets, and you will build your widget tree again with all changes you need to see. And the state of the stateful widget will survive. So that's why it's stateful, because state will survive these iterations. What are these 2 widgets good for? Well, stateless widget, use it to create labels, I don't know, badges, some nice panels or field sets, some reusable pieces of design without some, I don't know, without some interactivity maybe. That's stateless widget. It doesn't have any state, it just builds itself and it's done. Stateful widget, everything animated is stateful, everything interactive is probably stateful. For example, if you need some very special custom button, you will use stateful widget because button is pressed and it might be disabled and so on. But where you should put state of your application, data on the screen, or your user information about your user, should you put it into some stateful widget and use it from there? Well, I wouldn't recommend it. It can be done, but it can get quite messy quite quickly. Imagine something, I would say even simple, something simple like this. I have this screen with some header and some information about the content and maybe some content editor. And when a user changes the content somehow, I need to notify the content info and screen header must be rebuilt. It can be done using some sophisticated network of handlers and listeners and callbacks, but that can escalate in a very unpleasant way. So I would recommend from the very beginning, and it was favorite package in the survey, use, for example, provider. There are other possibilities for state management. Provider is a widget. It serves as a holder of your state object. So my user is information about my user, and you can use it in your widget tree, and it doesn't paint, it just sits there. And anywhere in the tree below, you can ask for my user, ask for the username, and render it on the screen, even inside a stateless widget. And the provider will make sure that your parts of the widget tree will be rebuilt when the user changes. So this is quite easy to understand, easy to use, and definitely easy to maintain. So I would strongly recommend use some more sophisticated state management technique. Even it's not from the Flutter SDK, it's third-party package. So use it from the very beginning and learn how to manage your state properly. Well, that's kind of it. I would say these three main topics is something you should concentrate at the beginning of your Flutter career. Learn Dart, familiarize yourself with different widgets in Flutter SDK, and learn a little bit about state management of your Flutter application. So now, if you will, please repeat after me. I use Dart to build my UI from widgets, and I manage the state of my application in a tidy manner. I am a Flutter developer, and that's how you become Flutter developer. Just for a good measure, I would like to mention my favorite packages, definitely provider. If you are used to some kind of dependency injection, which I am from Java, you don't have it in Flutter. It doesn't make any sense in immutable world. There is no way how to inject something into existing widget. So you can use, for example, get it package. It's quite easy, again, easy to use service locator. I must recommend E69N for internationalization and localization, mostly because it's my own package. I must say this, that I know the author, he's a stand-up guy. E69N is very useful, give it a try. And maybe later, I use build value, so maybe later try it too. It's maybe a little complicated at first sight, but it will help you build your model objects. It will help you with serialization and tasks like that. So this is how you become a Flutter developer according to Tomáš. And now if we have any questions.
Amazing. Amazing talk. Okay, we have the first question. What is the limitation of Flutter comparing to the native app?
I would say always use Flutter. But when you need to closely talk to the hardware, for example, you are building some AR application, maybe it's not the best idea to use Flutter for that. But most of applications are based on user experience, not on some hardware capabilities. And user experience, it's much more easy to achieve something quite catchy and easy to navigate in Flutter, I would say, than in native applications. It makes sense because Flutter is new and native frameworks are quite old. So when they started, we didn't even know what we want from those touchscreen devices. So it's time to burn the bridges and start from scratch, in my opinion. Embrace Flutter.
Okay, and we have time for like one, maybe two questions. Can you make a Flutter app run more than 16 FPS? Is it possible?
Well, it depends on hardware. Some iPads, I believe, run 120 already. I'm more Android user, so I don't have much experience with iPad. But yes, you can. If hardware allows it, Flutter will run 120.
And maybe the last question, what's your personal view on the current Flutter market?
It's growing, definitely. Yesterday, someone asked me if I can recommend any Flutter developer. I did not recommend anyone, but I think that jobs are definitely opening. You can start using Flutter as a hobby project, which I did. So if you have some pet project, something you want to create, if you have some great idea how to get quite rich quite quickly, then use Flutter after work as a hobby.
Nice. And maybe the very last question. How long do you code in Flutter?
Long before Flutter, because I use Dart on web, and I use it from the very beginning, I would say. So I don't know, 5 years, maybe more, even, I don't know, for a long time. More.
Okay.
More.
Amazing. Thank you for your time and amazing presentation.
Yeah, I tried. Thank you for inviting me.